Project. Why don't you sing with us? You say you love me, but how could you when I ran so far? And still you want me, when I lose sight of where you are. But it only took a moment with you, a glimpse of life with purpose. And I knew that living where the light is, oh Lord, is exactly where you want me, and I never want to leave. So I'm gonna stay in your presence, sing of your love forever, dance like I did the day when I caught a glimpse of you. I get a little bit desperate, run to the arms of heaven, all of my life surrender, 'cause I caught a glimpse of you. I caught a glimpse of you. I caught a glimpse of you. You were for me through the moments when I lose my way. You surround me with your mercy and your endless grace. It only took a moment with you, a glimpse of life with purpose. And I knew that living where the light is, oh Lord, it's exactly where you want me, and I never want to leave. So I'm gonna stay in your presence, sing of your love forever, dance like I did the day when I caught a glimpse of you. And I get a little bit desperate, run to the arms of heaven, all of my life surrender, 'cause I caught a glimpse of you. 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 I wanna lift you high, forever this heart is yours. Why would I run and hide? Mercy is covered up, and I give my life to you, 'cause all that you are is all I want, God. It's all I want. So I'm gonna stay in your presence, sing of your love forever, dance like I did the day when I caught a glimpse of you. And I get a little bit desperate, run to the arms of heaven, all of my life surrender, 'cause I caught a glimpse of you. 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 'Cause I caught a glimpse of you. Of you.
Well, welcome to the project. My name is Ryan, and thrilled to be here with you guys. I'm in Morning Church. That's where I live. But I used to be at the project all the time. I was the worship pastor here for a while before Brett. And it's a privilege to be here because this is a special place. And I'm sure you guys agree. I see some nodding, which is good. It's a special place because it's an opportunity for you guys as young adults to connect with Jesus together. And what I've always loved about the project is that it gives you this space to pursue a relationship with Jesus. And for all of us, it's completely different. That journey looks wildly different. For some of us, we wouldn't call ourselves Christians. For some of us, we've been on this journey of ups and downs with church and all of that. And one thing that I like to just say as we're singing these songs is, this is an opportunity for you. It's an opportunity for you to connect with the living God. And I don't know if you are far from Him, if you're angry at Him, or if you're close to Him. But for each and every one of you, this is an opportunity to connect. And I don't know if you're going to know all of these songs or not, but there's an opportunity here for you to say, okay, Jesus, I want what you want from me. And so as we continue to sing one more song here, I want to just challenge you to take a step. The Bible says that if we draw near to God, he draws near to us. There's this promise, right? And so that's my challenge. As we continue to worship tonight, would you just take a step in God's direction and just see what he does? Let's sing. Winds of pain I've blown, but I should have seen it coming. It's ridiculous, I know, but I still can't believe I'm here. Oh God, I know that I've been running, but your love was chasing me. All this time I've been searching for someone to rescue me, to rescue me. Mistake upon mistake, I've taken you for granted. It's funny how I say you are all I want, and now my world's collapsed. All these years are wasted. I'm wondering if you'll have me back. Despite the disgrace, I know that you love me still. Holding on to hope that this won't be the end of me. You breathe life into my bones, and you calm all my raging seas. Oh God, I know that I've been running, your love is chasing me. All this time I've been searching for someone to rescue me, to rescue me. Mistake upon mistake, I've taken you for granted. It's funny how I say you are all I want. Now my world's collide. All these years are wasted. I'm wondering if you'll have me back. Despite the disgrace, I know that you love me
Nights are
Thanks. You guys can have a seat.
That wasn't awkward. Not at all. You know,
Oh, hey man. Yeah, it's good. Can you hear me? Yeah, it's good. It's good.
can I hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
No, can you hear yourself?
Yeah, I can hear myself. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. We're good.
Sure you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what are you doing?
I have to tell you something.
Okay.
I'm you today. So my name's Cal. I wear purple. I am short. That is a very big piece of my personality. And I think I like teaching things, but sometimes I ramble on. People sleep sometimes. It depends upon the day.
It actually happened today in my small
it
group.
happened today. And, yeah, I'm Cal. I'm also Filipino. That adds a little bit of flavor, a little bit of spice, you know, everything nice.
I don't know why he has to go down. We're basically the same height, you know.
Right, so
Basically. See, it's just I'm just a little further, so it's okay. No, it's okay. Be professional, bro. Anyways, I'm the real Cal. I know I'm not as good looking as fake me, but I'm one of the interns here at the project at the Kingsway location. This is actually our intern. His name is John. He's our intern, so please call him Intern Brother John when you see him wandering down the hallways. But yeah, now that you guys know us, we would love to actually know you. If you guys are new or you've been attending the project for a while and haven't been connected yet, just check out the Connect booth just over there where John is, and just, yeah, he'll get you connected, and he even has a gift for you.
Okay, so, guess you know, look to your left, look to your right, there's a lot of people, you know, pretty big space, can be intimidating, can be a little bit overwhelming, you know. So one of the best ways actually to get to know people and actually start community is by serving. So we have a bunch of things you guys can do. You can be on stage, being me and Cal. You can do worship, you can be behind the scenes. One thing I would like to highlight, however, is our cafe. So you guys didn't know, Starbucks is pretty great, but being a barista is even better. So at the end of the month, actually, we're opening up our cafe. So if you guys would love to actually serve at our cafe specifically and live your barista dreams, or maybe even make your own coffee, up to you. You guys can head to projectgig.com/serve to actually check it out.
Yeah, and another thing too that we want to highlight is next weekend, so March 12th, mark in your calendar, this Saturday from 1 to 3:30, we're hosting a project workshop at the Kingsway location. So throughout that afternoon, we're going to be talking about the spiritual disciplines and how to apply them, such as like prayer, fasting, solitude, confession, and how to read the Bible. So if this is something that interests you, we would love to have you guys there. So sign up at theprojectgig.com/events. And also, it's like, we're also going to feed you, okay? There's a coffee bar, there's a cereal bar, and, it's not like we're going to give you guys mueslicks or, like, Raisin Bran. We're actually going to give you guys, like, the good kinds, Yeah. Yeah, like, something that, you kids will like, Exactly.
We also want to thank you guys so much just for believing in us as the project, in our vision, whether that be by prayer or by giving financially. And if you guys would like to give financially tonight, there are black boxes at the back of the auditorium. There's debit and credit kiosks in the lobby, as well as you guys can give online on our website. Another point we actually want to make is the project isn't just about itself. We don't only care about how we run. Obviously, we want to be good, but we also care about the world around us. And so, with that, we actually want to help. We want you guys to help with our morning church as well. Today we raised $2,500 in relief funds for the Ukraine. So, as you're donating tonight, you guys can put in the description or ERDO in order to actually donate to that and give help where it's needed.
Yeah, also, guys, if you remember this, ice cream for ice cream, we all scream for ice cream. Exactly. Yeah, let's try that one more time. Come on, you guys are making me feel old. I know you guys have heard this ad before. Ice cream for ice cream, we all scream for... Yeah, exactly. So after the service, we're going to have some ice cream sandwiches at the bar, or sorry, not at the bar. Out there, we're going to have some ice cream sandwiches. We have some butlers that are going to serve you guys. We're also going to have some games and video games at the cafe, so feel free to hang out afterwards.
So before Jeff comes up and starts our new series in March Madness, just take a look at the screens and we will show up.
Yeah. We're the same height.
I really, really like fishing, which is really hard because if you live in Alberta your whole life, I was born and raised in Edmonton, there's not really a lot of options. Like even as a kid, I liked fishing, and I'd be like, hey, Dad, there's a river in Edmonton here. Can we go fishing there? And he said, no, it's dangerous. Like, why is it dangerous? Like, do people regularly fall in? Are there crocodiles? Is there something that you should be really worried about? Should I be having anxiety as I'm driving over top of it? What is wrong with this river? And it turns out it's not the water itself, although water has its baseline danger. It's because the fish are disgusting and polluted. It's a river that I was always told that if you fell into, let alone swam in, you would need to get some sort of shot to deal with whatever bacteria is in the river. The North Saskatchewan River, while I love my city, I love Edmonton, I don't know why, but I do, the river is not clean. Now, there's other areas to fish, and that's actually where I started to fish more and more in my life, was with some of my friends who had cabins at Alberta Beach or Lac St. Anne County. I don't know if you know this about lakes in general in Alberta. They're not much better than the North Saskatchewan River. In fact, there's not really lakes in Alberta. They're really just like runoff ponds and sloughs that have fish somehow managing to survive in them. So we would still go fishing, and Alberta Beach is one of our better places, mainly because there was a cabin on the lake, and we'd pull out this old tin boat. Like I'm talking like 1970s, 1980s with an outboard motor. This isn't like some jet boat. You probably shouldn't be water skiing out there. The water in some places is like only like you could stand up in the middle of the lake in some areas. Some places get deeper. But the thing about these lakes is they get warm, they're not overly deep, the water heats up, the runoff from the farms come in, and it's just not that good of a place to go and swim. But we would go and fish. Be trolling around, we'd get some walleye, we'd get some pike, and it became this thing that me and my friends would do. And one week we were out there, we were really excited to fish, and just the weather was not cooperating. Like it was raining, it was storming, it was every once in a while you'd get a storm come in that was really, really bad. Like really bad. You'd have like lightning, and it would be out of nowhere. It'd be like really nice all day, and then all of a sudden this huge storm would come, there'd be funnel clouds. You're like, where did this come from? There was no sign that this was going to happen. The weatherman lied to me. The weather app lied to me. This was not supposed to happen, and as quickly as it came, it would just kind of go away. But it would be scary for those moments. Now, this wasn't that per se. This was actually just a week of bad weather. And we were so desperate by the end of the week that we were like, you know what? The storming today, the wind, the white caps on the water, they don't look so bad. I think we could do it. So we're talking in the living room, and we're like, we're going to go, and we're going to fish. And this is just, I think it's okay. I think, the white caps, it's a big boat. We're big guys. I think we could swim if we won't drown. There's no way. You just start to push all the realistic dangers out of the back of your mind. And our friend's dad, who actually owned the boat, came, he's like, you guys can't. You can't go fishing. You can't fish. It's terrifying out there. It's not safe. You can't be doing that. And we just kind of looked at each other like, okay, boomer. Good job. So we went fishing. I've never been so scared in my life. And I don't think my friends know quite how scared I was. But I'm telling you, we're in this little tin boat. It's capsizes at the best of times. It's not quite kayak bad, but it's basically like a metal canoe. And we're putzing along across these white caps. And every single wave that hits us is kind of spilling into the boat a little bit. We're rocking back and forth. And at any moment, we could flip over. And while you maybe in some places could stand in this shallow lake, it's very likely that it was going to be a deep part. And it was scarier and scarier all the time. Yet we still cast our rods out, cast our lines out, and we're fishing and pretending that we're not all scared. We're going to die any second now. And after a little while, we decided, you know what? We should probably go back in. The fish aren't biting, mainly because we're just rocking and waving all over the place. And we started to make our way back in, and we made a vow amongst each other that day that we would never let my friend's dad know that he was right. And to this day, he doesn't know he was right, although he may be watching right now. But I'll tell you this, I've never really been on a boat in a sketchy situation until then. You watch Titanic, which is extraordinary circumstances, obviously. You watch all these different shows like Biggest Fish or whatever, those shows on Discovery Network, and there's these big fishing boats, and the hurricanes come in. But you don't really experience the reality of how scary that can be. And while this was a very minor example, I recognized for a moment just how scary it can be. The elements are in control. You are out of control. You have a piece of wood or a little motor, and the other side is Mother Nature raining all of the terror on you. And you realize this could be the end. A slight change of course, a slight wrong bump, and you could drown. It could all be over. You don't get a second chance. Life is fragile, and this is a scary, terrifying situation. This week, this month, we're starting our series, March Madness, and this was questions that you all sent in. We had you go on our Instagram page and send us all of these different things that you wanted answered. How to deal with this, how to navigate this. And I'm excited for this because it's real questions or real answers to real questions that you have been asking. So this week, we want to start with a tough one. And this is something I think that every person who, whether you subscribe to a Jesus-based life or not, has had this question cross your mind. How do you trust God when he feels so distant? How do you follow a God who it seems may be disinterested? Because that's the perception when we pray, we ask, and it appears like nothing happens. Because when we're in Sunday school as a kid, or if you have any kind of idea of what a God figure would be, the person in control, that you would ask for help, and you would think that someone that powerful would be able to step in and make the changes. Yet, we find ourselves in situations where we pray and our family member is sick or dying, or that job situation is falling apart, our finances are falling apart, our school is falling apart, our relationships are falling apart, and we pray, God, change this situation, and then it kind of feels like radio silence. Nothing happens. Nothing moves. No change. How do you reconcile that? Especially when you hear stories of other people's lives being changed. You hear stories and testimonies from people saying, I was at the end of my rope and then God stepped in and I prayed and he changed it and everything's better. Hallelujah, it's all good. And you're sitting there and you're like, well, what about me? Where's mine? I've been just as desperate. I've been asking just as much. I don't think there's anything wrong with me. How do I navigate that? How do I reconcile that in my mind? And that's why this is a great question. And these are hard questions to deal with. These are hard questions, and it's almost like taboo to talk about because it sounds like you're having doubt. But doubt isn't always the worst thing. It's what we do with doubt and how we reconcile that, how we build off of that doubt, how we make our life built on the foundation of what we learned through that doubt. So I want to start off in the Bible. We always turn to the Bible every week here at the project because we know that's the best place that we can encounter who Jesus is and how that impacts our lives. So we're going to turn to the book of Matthew. It's the first book of the second half of the Bible, the New Testament, and it's a first-hand account of Jesus' life through his disciples, the 12 guys that followed him around and literally mimicked everything he did, learned from him step by step. And in Matthew 8:23, we start here. They've just been going through the countryside. Jesus has been teaching. He just healed a whole bunch of people, and now they come to this body of water. It's a calm day. It's all good, and so they think the logical way, we're going to cross we're going to cross this lake on a boat. And it says in verse 23, then he got into the boat and his disciples followed him. Suddenly a furious storm came up on the lake so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him saying, Lord, save us. We are going to drown. Now let's be honest. It can be really tough. It can be really hard to trust God when we can't feel him. It can be really hard and really difficult to believe that he's still got our best interest in mind when we feel like he just isn't responding or he isn't listening or he's sleeping on us. He's sleeping on our circumstance and our problems. And that kind of leads us, like I said, towards what certain secularists or liberalism or even just general scientism, people that subscribe to that, where it really proves that God doesn't exist or that because we can only measure what we can see, if we can't see a response to the request, then just by even any sort of idea of a scientific model, there's no reaction, there's nothing there. It doesn't exist. God can't be there. And if he does exist, and he is there listening, and he actually hears my prayers, well, then he can't be good or just because he continues to not act when I need him. If he's good, he would respond. If he is just sitting there and doesn't respond, then he can't be good. Again, these are hard conversations to have, and they're not usually the ones that you hear in church. But this is the thing. There's a lot more than what we can put our finger on in this conversation. But it doesn't change that there is doubt. And it makes you wonder, you hear the famous line by Karl Marx, who says that religion is the opium of the masses. that there's no point to this, that it's just kind of the religion makes us feel better about the fact that we're swirling through space, through an expanse of time and endless space that has no purpose, completely just teleological, there's no reason, and you just happen to have existed by an infinitely unlikely chance. Exponentially unlikely, but you just kind of won the lottery, but that's it. Your existence is futile, it's pointless, and if something bad happens, you're stuck. Go home, it is what it is. Everything is a lottery, everything is a game of chance. But obviously, I don't believe that, and that's not where we're going to end tonight, because that would feel pretty hopeless. But I think we've been in that state, and that word really captures what we're talking about here, is that when we don't feel God is moving, we lose hope, and we begin to feel a true sense of hopelessness. Now, I want to tell you a story from my life, and if you've been around the project, or if you've heard me speak for any amount of time, you may have heard this story before, but as soon as I saw this question, I knew this was the right thing to share. When I was 18 years old, I met a girl. I'd never had a girlfriend before, just a couple flings here and there, but nothing serious. I started dating this girl, and when it's your first girlfriend, you're pretty head over heels really fast. At least I was. Like, it's completely irrational. I had nothing to measure it against. I was like, well, you're a girl, so I guess we should get married. You check all the boxes. One box. We're good. And I thought, this is the one, and she was great. It was a good relationship, or at least in what my 18-year-old mind at that time knew relationships to be. I had a very narrow view of it, but I was just head over heels. And within months, I was like, yeah, I'm going to marry this girl. I'm not even joking. That was the plan. Now, I knew that there were obstacles in front of that, like me still living with my parents and having no money and no career path and still being in my first year of school. So as irrational and illogical as that was, the other side of my brain was like, she's a girl and she likes you. Let's get married, right? And that's where I landed. But things were going pretty good, and we ended our first year of college, and then she started to have some health issues. And we couldn't quite put our finger on it. They were really strange health issues. It started off with her fingers and joints and everything kind of numbing and just becoming really rigid and not moving and having a lot of pain when she moved, kind of similar to an early onset arthritis. But that was kind of taken out of the picture by the doctors, and time kept going on, and they couldn't figure out what it was. The blood work was pretty normal, but there's all this pain, and it got worse and worse to the point where she would text me and she would be like, I had to go home from work. She would work a construction job because she couldn't just lift things anymore. It was becoming painful and hard. And as a boyfriend, you're thinking, man, you know what, I can't be negative. I can't tell her what I searched on Google. I Googled the symptoms, and it's all cancers and all these other things. But I'll be honest with you, it was starting to build anxiety in my mind. I can only imagine what she's going through. But it kept getting worse and worse. Through the summer, I remember near the end of that summer, right before we found out what this thing was, we went to a football game. And for some reason, we thought it would be really funny to go sit at the very, very top corner of Commonwealth Stadium, which is really high and really far. And it was fine because during the day she was okay, but when the night came, she couldn't walk. It started to spiral, it started to snowball, and I basically had to carry her like an injured athlete off a field, or at one point when we got out of the stadium and we had parked far away, which was not the best decision in hindsight because I wanted free parking, I had to carry her and even put her in a shopping cart we found. It was scary, it was terrifying. I didn't know what was going on, and we couldn't figure out. Later that next day, she started to get black marks on her tongue, and her legs started to just explode with red marks from exploded blood vessels we found down the road. And it was only a couple weeks later that the doctors finally eliminated everything else, and we found out that she had an incredibly rare autoimmune disease. And the only way to fix that was long-term steroids, like intravenous steroids, and chemotherapy. And this wasn't cancer, but it had some similarities to leukemia. But the only way they could actually fix it, they can't cure it, they put it into remission similar to a cancer. And you can only imagine, for me, that was crushing. For her, it was horrifying. But I'll never forget the night I found out that news, and it was awful. I remember, because I was home alone, my parents had gone to Hinton to see my aunt and uncle, and they even took my dog. So I was by myself, and all I wanted was to pet my dog and tell him all my problems, and Rocky wasn't there for me that night. It's hard, I know, awful. But I was destroyed. And it only got worse from there, because then the actual chemo came, and I've said this before, but if you have ever seen someone you care about, or you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy, let alone someone you love, that chemo is horrifying. And I know there's people here who have seen that or maybe even experienced it. And it went through a long year. Through the winter, she couldn't drive. I'd have to drive she lived out of town, so I'd have to drive an hour to meet her. And listen, I wasn't the best boyfriend at all times. I was an 18, 19-year-old guy. Like, I wasn't perfect, but I tried really hard. And I got to near the end where she went through the chemo, came to the remission, and started to kind of feel a little bit better. But I remember in the peak of that, there was a moment where I was driving home. I was driving down 50th Street and Ellerslie towards my parents' place in Beaumont. And I had been praying, and we had all been praying, and all the churches we had been at had been praying over and over and over, saying, hey, God, please heal her. We know you can heal her. We believe you can heal her. You're the God who heals people. We know this. You're better than any doctor. You knew what was going on before. We know and we trust you, but yet on the other side of that, silence. It got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. It never got better. Every time we felt like something better was coming, it would get worse again. And I remember hitting this point driving home where I was mad at God. I was furious. And I finally just kind of lashed out and yelled at him audibly, not internally. I said, God, I've seen you do this before. I know you can do it. I've seen you heal other people. I've heard story after story. I believe it's no lack of faith on my end. Like I'm telling you, I know you can do this. I believe you, and I know that this is possible, but yet I'm asking over and over again, and you just won't do it. Why won't you move? Why won't you heal her? Like, I need this. If you would just do what I'm asking, things would be better. I could be with her. She could drive. She could go to school. I could go back to school and just get on with our lives. And at the end of the day, maybe we could get married. But right now, I just want her to be able to stay awake for a couple of hours and not have to go for chemotherapy. God, like, just please, please. Silence. Nothing. And I remember just being at this moment of crisis. Have you ever had that before? A moment of crisis in your faith where you just don't know how to reconcile with what you're living from what you believe. And that was me. And life went on. I still went to church, but I was honestly at certain points in that time not bordering on not even really following Jesus anymore. Still go to church, still knew it was right, but I was just in such a dark place. But then it started to change. You know, this was a moment where I was just broken. So let's go back to Jesus' story here. They're on the boat. They're freaking out. They're upset. They go, they think they're going to die, and they go to see Jesus. And, you know, that's pretty logical, right? Who do you go to? The guy who just healed people. He had just healed leprosy, one of the most terrifying diseases you could ever think of in that time. Like, it was incurable, and the misinformation about that trumped any COVID misinformation. It was like they thought if you walked by someone, your arms and legs would just start to get riddled with leprosy. They treated people terribly, and Jesus had just healed this. So he had just proven that he's controls the universe, the metaphysical world, all the laws of physics and science and medicine. He actually showed that he's above that and wields power over it. So who do you go to when the waves are hitting your boat and you think you're about to crash? Surely Jesus, the guy who we believe is God, who we know is God and has claimed to be God and has shown through his actions he's God, he's the guy we're going to turn to in that moment. And they're like, where's Jesus? He'll save us. And they look to the back of the boat, and Jesus is having a nap. How would you feel? You're about to die. You're about to die. This isn't no Alberta beach fishing storm. This is and this isn't even a tin boat. We're talking 2,000-year-old boat technology. I'm not a boat expert, but I can tell you 2,000 years ago, that boat wasn't as good as today. They're freaking out. And the God that you're following, they left their careers, they left their lives, they left their families behind to follow because he said, follow me and I will show you a life worth living. And in their time of need, he's passed out. He's literally not even conscious through their suffering. He's not even caring enough to be awake as they die. And I just think of how much hopelessness there would be in that situation. How hopeless they would feel that God himself is sleeping in their time of need. That God is just sleeping on them when they need him the most. He's gone and abandoned them to their destruction. How do you reconcile that? Well, just when it seems like all hope is lost, Jesus just kind of calmly stands up. And he stands up and tells the waves to settle and the wind to stop and the skies to clear. We catch up in verse 26. He says, he replied, You have little faith. Why are you so afraid?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him." And I always think that disciples are so dumb. Like when I read the Bible, it's always like you look at them and they're a bunch of young guys and they haven't seen as much, but we have the perspective of knowing the whole story now. And when we know kind of what's going on and we know who Jesus is, we're like, why were they so worried? Like clearly they were literally with God on earth on the boat. Did you really think that Jesus was just going to be like, "I guess we're drowning today. I don't know what to do. I know I healed leprosy, but water, it's different." How do you deal with that? But I think that like these disciples, what morons were they? Because I have the perspective. How could they ever think that they were in trouble? Jesus, they were within literal reach to touch Jesus, and they thought that they were going to die, and they had no faith that they were going to make it out of that situation. How dumb were they? He had literally done things time and time again and gotten them out of tough situations. Why would it be any different this time? And then I think, maybe I'm a moron too. Maybe I'm no different. I'm just like those disciples. I'm just like them. And I always see this verse where he says, "You have little faith. Why are you so afraid?" And I always thought that was him scolding them, right? Like, "You idiots of little faith, how dare you? Do you not even know who I am?" But when I look at the person of Jesus and I look at his character, that's not how Jesus talked. I don't think that's what this was. When I picture it, I hear Jesus and I think, if I'm looking, just like, don't you guys know who I am? Don't you know by now? Just disappointed and sad, just like, don't you know you were safe the whole time? Don't you know you didn't have to doubt me? Don't you remember all those times before when you were in trouble? Don't you remember that time where you went through this and you didn't think you'd make it out? And remember that time that you saw me move in this area of your life or in this situation? Don't you remember? Don't you know who I am? God, the one in control, even when it doesn't feel like it. And that's tough because, like I said, I've been that person. I think we've all been that person. Whether you've seen it 1,000 times or once, there's those situations where we lose our memory and we have amnesia spiritually of the situations where God has come through, and we just choose that this time he's just going to give up on us. This time he's asleep in the boat. This time we're going to drown. So I was driving that night, angry as it gets, feeling like God had abandoned me. It was in the middle of winter, and it was probably a few months later that my ex-girlfriend started to feel a lot better. And, the remission started to kick in. The steroid effects, all those things, those are tough too. It started to go away. Didn't have to go for chemo anymore. Looked like things were turning up good. Spring is in the air. The snow is melting. The days are longer. We can start hanging out. She's got her license back. It's all good. Everything's on an upward trajectory. Things are coming up, Jeff. And then she dumped me. Ew. On Father's Day. Now, I'm not a dad, but it was Father's Day brunch, and that's always super awkward when your 250-pound son is weeping into his grand slam. Poor dad. It's not that anyone owed me anything. It was just crushing, you can imagine. You go through that much time, that much pain with another person. You hang on, even if it wasn't a healthy relationship in any sense of the word. You feel that. You start to wonder, why? What was the point? What did I even do with this? Like, why did I go through that? I remember saying, God, what was the point of all of this? But if you fast forward a little bit, after a summer of a lot of emo music and just a lot of bad decisions and just not feeling very good about myself or the world in general, I was in the small town that she was from, and I, for some reason, happened to be in a Walmart. And I saw her from across the Walmart. And, when you see an ex, you're not like overly gung-ho to go say hi. I don't think there's a more awkward situation in the world, but, it's kind of like you see someone, like, could have killed for a mask back at that time, right? Just like put it on, like, Jeff, nope. But you try and hide, right? Like I'm kind of awkwardly, I'm like, okay, just got to get past, got to get to the doors, just got to get past the toy section. Maybe I'll cut through the menswear section so I don't have to talk to her. And then as I was doing that, God, as clearly as he's ever said to me, not audibly, but just in my mind and in my heart and in my soul, said, go talk to her. I was pretty mad at her, guys. Like I was not happy. I went up to her and I said, how are you doing? We had a little conversation. As awkward as it gets. But we had the conversation. And I looked at her and she looked healthy. The water weight from the steroids was gone. She was talking clearly. She was healthy. She looked normal. She was telling me about how she was going back to school for the thing that she always wanted to. And I told her, I'm going back to school too. I told her, life is actually getting back on track here. Things are good, I'm going on with my life. And she said the same thing. And God struck me in that moment. And he said, Jeff, remember that drive home. Remember when you were yelling. Remember when you were upset. Remember when you doubted that I would come through for you. Do you remember that? And I'm remembering this moment on that drive, and I'm remembering all the feelings I had. And I remember saying, God, if you would just do this, A, B, C, and D, the outcome would be perfect. My life would be great. And all these things, she'd be able to go back to school. I'd be able to go back to school, be driving, go on with our life. And I realized in that moment that God, everything that I had prayed for had come true. The only caveat was we weren't together. It wasn't in the way I wanted it to be. It wasn't in the way that I wanted to see it happen. But God knew that there was something more for my life beyond what I could see in front of me. God knew that I wasn't the best person to be the captain of my future because I was so focused on one thing that it wasn't the best outcome for me on the other end of it. And that's the beauty of having a Jesus-based life, is that while we're riding one wave and looking to try and make it over, Jesus is with us and he's looking over at the next 6 waves at the horizon, and he knows where we should be going, not just what we think is going to keep us alive or happy in the moment. And that's frustrating for us as people. That's frustrating for me because I want to know, I want to be in control. It's the reason I'm terrified of flying. I don't like that even if there's a pilot who's been trained to fly something that I could never even comprehend how to turn on the interior light on. I don't like that I'm not in control of the plane. That makes me freak out. And we're like that with this. Because we don't want God to control it, because we're not brought in for every single conversation as to where we're going. But we need to trust that the God who created the universe, who can cure leprosy, who can cure any disease, who can do anything on earth and wields metaphysics and the physical laws of science in his hand, that he's looking out for us beyond the wave that we can't see over. And we need to be able to trust that he's got control of that. But the problem is that we don't look at God as that captain. We don't always look at Jesus as the person who is in control and worth following. Sometimes the hardest part is recognizing the fact that Jesus is not our genie. Because it's, God, please do this for me. My first wish is this. My second wish is this. And there are times where we still share our requests, and I don't think you should ever feel bad about requesting things from God and asking for him. And it is hard to reconcile the idea that God has a will, and sometimes that will is different than what my immediate thoughts are and what I would like. The needs in my life may be different from my wants, and God knows that. And there's a tension there, and I get that. And it feels at times like it's totally unreasonable that God would not act on the thing that I'm asking because it seems reasonable to us. But what we don't know is that God is looking beyond the wave we're riding. God is looking to the horizon, and he's directing us towards the best thing that we could have in our life. And I'm telling you this, I'm not telling you off. I'm not telling you that you're not good enough in this area. I'm telling you I've been there before. I've been there before. And that's a pretty strong example, but there's been so many times in my life where I'm thinking, how am I going to afford school? How am I going to pass this class because I'm not very smart and this is really hard? How am I going to get a job this fall? Nothing's available. How am I going to make it through this situation? Am I going to get hired here, or am I going to be able to hire this person there? Whatever the situation is, the thing that you're walking through, the storm in your life that you're navigating, I always come out the other end and look 6 months later and be like, man, I wasted so much effort, so much time being anxious and panicking because God was already there where I needed to go, and he was calling me towards that space, and that was the right thing. And if I would have just trusted him, not be blind or unaware of the stresses and the realities of my life, being hyper aware of it is fine, but when we choose stress, when we choose fear, when we choose anxiety, instead of trusting that God is with us through those situations, that Jesus not only cares about us, but he's in the boat with us. And it might feel like he's sleeping. In seasons, it might feel like he's asleep. And it may feel like nothing good is going to come. But the reality is this, and I hope you walk away tonight hearing and knowing this in your heart. If Jesus is in the boat with you, you have nothing to fear. It doesn't mean that bad things won't happen. Storms come. Storms happen in our lives, in our world. There's no greater example of this than just watch the news right now, right? The last couple of years, it's like every single time I can put my head up and just kind of recognize that I'm alive, something new comes in. All right, life's going on. Global pandemic, the wave hits the boat. We almost capsize. Round 2, wave 2, wave 3, literal wave of the pandemic hitting us over and over again. Every time it feels like we're open for business again, something bad happens. Now it's like, oh man, look at the world. We're about to, things are going good. Things are about to go good. War in Europe. Every time I look, there's something else happening in the world on a global scale. There's something happening in my life on a global scale. Life is difficult. There are going to be storms. They will hit. They will be scary. You're going to have to navigate those. But I'm telling you here tonight, no matter what storm you're facing, whether that's health challenges, family challenges, global scale war, whatever is keeping you up at night, the storm that you're facing is not bigger than the God that we follow. And Jesus sits in your boat. He's not sleeping on your situation. He hasn't given up on you. He hasn't stopped caring. He isn't no longer in control. He does exist. He is there, but it's just a matter of perspective that we can't see what he sees. He's calling us to what is good long term. He's calling us to what his will is, which is good things for us. And yes, I have a hard time reconciling or understanding why sometimes we have to suffer, because it isn't always going to turn out the way we want it. And you may have to walk through some really scary situations, and you don't always get what you want. But I know that what I need is Jesus navigating that storm with me. If I would have gotten what I wanted, I would have married that girl. And it would have been a disaster. In hindsight, what was I thinking? Crazy. Not the right move at all. I didn't end up marrying her, obviously, and now I have my wife, who I think is way better. Well, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I wouldn't have been able to marry my wife. My life would have been falling apart. I for sure wouldn't have my dream job here tonight. My life wouldn't have been anywhere near what it needed to be and what God had called me to. If he would have acted as a genie and had just given me whatever I just demanded in the moment, what I thought I needed, I would have my life ruined. But because I had to wait, because Jesus had a better plan for me in my life, because he knew at the other end of the storm was a different solution, a different path than I needed to go, my life is significantly better. God called me to what he had in store for me in the future. So tonight, there's a couple of things I want you to understand. Number one, know this. You are here tonight. We've all gone through doubt. You're not the only person to doubt. Wrestling with doubt is a healthy thing. The key is that we come out on the other side with a realistic perspective, that we come out on the other side of this knowing that Jesus does love us in spite of our storms in our lives and our circumstances. The important thing is that you come out the other end. When we wrestle with doubt, we come out the other end with Jesus winning. And you'll have a stronger faith on the other end of that. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to wrestle with those emotions. I think it was okay for me to have that night, to have that wrestling match with God, to have that wrestling with my faith, because I grew so much at the other end of it. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have all the perspective. Part of the journey and the fun of a Jesus-based life is at the other end of situations, seeing that Jesus came through. But we need to make a cognizant decision to look at our circumstances, look at our fears, and recall and remember what Jesus has done in our life before. So think of it right now. What are you stressed about? Where do you think God isn't in control? Where does it feel like everything's spiraling out? And then think about the times in your life that God stepped in, where it turned out to be okay. Where at the end of the day, I didn't need to be that worried. And then take that perspective and put it into today's situation. Just like those times, you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be scared. If you're on the boat and the storm came and Jesus wasn't with you, terrifying. But the God that created the universe, the God that heals diseases, the God that tells literal supercell tornado-style storms to stop and they end with birds chirping in moments, is in your boat. And if you're wrestling with that today, he's looking to you with just so much compassion. And he wants to say, don't you know who I am? Remember who he is. He's with you. He'll never abandon you. And because of that, we don't have to be scared. Stand with us if you can.
I'm out here in the open, trying to see the path. Somewhere in between the promise and the place that comes to pass. And who knows what it'll cost me or how long it'll last. But I told you I would follow, I'll never take it back. I hang on every word you ever said, for I know you're faithful, and I'm still waiting on a wealth of promises. But I know you're able, so if ever I stray, if ever I fall, won't you call me homeward? Won't you call me homeward? I've asked you more than once to hurry up the plan. But what if where you want me is exactly where I am? 'Cause what I learned from waiting is waiting never lasts. Well, you didn't bring me this far just to bring me back. No, you're too good for that. I hang on every word you ever said, for I know you're faithful, and I'm still waiting on a wealth of promises. But I know you're able, so if ever I stray, if ever I fall, won't you call me homeward? Won't you call me homeward? Sometimes I feel you, and sometimes I feel like I don't. Faith's more than a feeling, it's like seeing the invisible, and yet somehow I see it. All that lies at the end of the road, and I don't know the timing, so I'm guessing it's not mine to know. Lord, help me believe it. All those days when I feel like I don't. I've learned faith isn't feelings, it's just trusting when you feel it most. And yet somehow I see it. All that lies at the end of the road. So that road may be lonely, I know that I'm never alone.
As we continue to sing tonight, this next song is called Holy, and it's a song that I wrote in a similar place as Jeff was speaking about in my own life, dealing with just a crippling anxiety. And it just kind of came on, and I don't know what triggered it. And honestly, for years, that's just been something I've battled and something I've been pretty public and vocal about. And this song is just simply a journey of me asking those same questions. God, where are you? God, why am I dealing with this? But it's also the journey of realizing the sweet presence of God in the middle of what I was dealing with. And the timing wasn't my timing, the pain wasn't the pain I wanted to experience, and yet I've seen so clearly the beauty of the journey that I've been on and still walk out to this day. And so for you, I'm sure there's something in your life that is frustrating, maybe to put it mildly, frustrating. And I'm sure there are huge giants in front of you and mountains in front of some of you. And like we just heard tonight, there's no promise that that's going to go away tonight, although it can, and you should ask. But there is the promise in Scripture that Jesus is with you. And so as we sing these next couple of songs, our prayer for you is that you would experience the peace of Jesus, that you would experience his goodness in the middle of the mess that you're dealing with, and that you'd see his faithfulness even when it doesn't look like it's there. So let's sing this together. And join us.
Wrestling with these thoughts, are you who you say you are? If you're so good, then why do I feel empty? I'm trying but I can't break through, praying but I'm so confused. Is it true that you think you love me? Is it true that you are always for me? So why does my heart distress? And why do I feel so lonely? Help me to understand how you are so good and holy. Listening for your heart, I know you who you say you are. You were right there with me in my grieving. And now that I made it through, I know that it was always you. You're all I want and all I've ever needed. Oh, even when it's hard, I still believe it. So why should my heart distress? How could I feel unworthy? God, you have called me friend, and you are the King of glory. So why should my heart distress? How could I feel unworthy? God, you have called me friend.
more time, your peace. You are
Peace to a restless soul. Peace when my thoughts wage war. Peace to the anxious heart. That's who you are. That's who you are. You are peace when my fear takes hold. Peace when I'm feeling close. Peace when I lose control. And that's who you are. That's who you are.
So many different things happening in everyone's lives. I know in a room this size that there's got to be just so many different storms and confusing situations going through people's minds and keeping them up at night. So many different anxieties, mental health, family situations. God, we give it all to you right now. Pray that in every situation, in every circumstance, that you would step in, that Holy Spirit, even in just this moment, for every single heart in the space, and every person online, that you would just fill their hearts and give them a moment of peace and clarity, and a reminder that you're with them. You're in the boat. You haven't abandoned them. The storm is scary. The storm is big, but you're bigger. So God, we trust you. We believe in you. And we just pray that you would help us to trust you and that you would direct us through these circumstances and bring us to our next, the better situation that's in line with your will. In Jesus' name, amen. You can take a seat. Just for anybody who maybe you're here today and it's your first time, or you've been kind of navigating what a Jesus-based life might mean for you, and you're hearing this conversation about God being in the boat with you, and you don't have that, and you're wondering, maybe what could I learn more about this? Is there some information I could get? Or maybe you're ready to make that decision. You're ready to just take that next step and start a Jesus-based life. And we always say here at the project that following Jesus is the best decision that you could make in your life. That's been my experience. That's been the experience of so many people in this room and around the world. And if you want more information about that, or you want to do that right now, tonight, I want to talk to you, some of our staff, our pastors, our volunteers. You can go to the Connect booth that's just out there. We'd pray with you now. Or you can go to the link that's going to be on the screen on the website, projectyg.com/next, and we'll get you, or /connect, and you can find out some more information. We'd like to get a PDF in your hands, something that you can actually look at and get a little bit more depth of information on. A couple more things just before we go. We got something really fun happening, because who doesn't love ice cream sandwiches? We have butlers that are going to be serving the ice cream sandwiches. Don't ask what that means. Just go and experience it together. We'll find out together. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Ice cream sandwiches are going to be served out there. We have the Nintendo Switch going on, Super Smash Brothers in the cafe. You can hang out. Don't rush off. Part of church, as much as the service is church, the community is equally as important. So let's hang out. Let's meet some new people. Thanks for being here. I want you to know that we're praying for you. We love you. And we can't wait to see you next week.